from Los Angeles, this is the Echelon Radio Network.
So this is Jerry Hemsworth, and I'm here on the Echelon Radio podcast with one of my, I feel very blessed to call her one of my good friends and colleagues, Stephanie Vitacco of Team Vitacco and Keller Williams. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I was thinking this morning, and I was so excited that you were coming today. I was like, this is going to be a great day.
It will be fun.
And we've had so many great conversations, not only about work, but life and balance and all of that. And I'm always in awe of your backstory of why you became a real estate agent. How did you and why did you become a real estate agent?
It's a good question. So that was a long time ago.
Well, we try not to count.
Yeah, no, we're not going to count. So I was very young, and I had been in the fashion industry, and I was getting too old for that industry, and so I was told, and I wanted to get into a line of work where I would have more control. Mm-hmm. And so I had a acquaintance who was my age, who was in real estate, and he was doing very well. And I thought that it looked interesting. So I thought, I'm not really sure what I want to do. I think I'll just get my real estate license and we'll see how this goes. Mm-hmm. And that was a long time ago. Yeah. And here we are.
More than 15.
Yeah, a little bit. So I kind of stumbled into it by saying, I'm going to give this a whirl. And I mean, I did. It wasn't like I knew I wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer, or I didn't go to school for something specifically. Mm-hmm. So I thought I knew that I wanted something that I would have control of my income, my control of my time, which in real estate you don't have any control of your time.
It's a fallacy.
Yeah. But if you do dedicate yourself, and there can be strong financial rewards. And that was important to me to be able to create that from myself, by myself, without having to rely on another person to be able to create financial stability. So I thought real estate would be a good avenue to explore. So I jumped in, and that was the beginning.
Did you like it right away?
Oh, God, I got beat up. I mean, it was brutal. Yeah, definitely.
So did you ever want to quit?
I think I did go into the conference room one time and close the door behind me so that no one could see, and cried, which there's no crying in real estate. God. But yeah, I was really young. I was really naive. I had no business experience. I had no skills, and there's no training. You just jump in. So it was like being dropped into a fast-flowing river without any raft. And I had to figure out how to swim. So, and that was okay, though. It was, I don't know, had I known otherwise, I might not have jumped in.
Well, was there any mentor, anybody you could turn to and ask?
So,
like, what the heck?
The company that I started with gave me a mentor, and a husband-wife team. They were very successful. And within the first, I think, 4 or 5 weeks, they left on a very lengthy vacation. So I was left like, okay, who do I go to? What I did was, excuse me, there were 3 guys in the office that were older than me, but still relatively young, and they were successful, and they all sat together like they were the same.
It's like a little bowl pit.
Yeah, exactly, and they were right next to each other. So I was very young, and so I went over to them and said, hey, so-and-so is out of town. I really don't know what I'm doing. If I have any questions, can I ask you? And of course, they said, sure. What were they going to say? No?
Go away. Go away, little girl.
Pretty much, right? So it got to the point where, I can be a little intense when it comes to trying to do what I want to do or accomplish. And so I would literally go there all the time. I have a question. I have another question. I have another question. And it got so bad where every time I would get up from my desk and walk over there, they'd all pick up their phones. Like, yes,
No.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. So, but you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I would just go wherever I needed to go to get the knowledge that I needed to get until I could get the experience.
So tenacious would be one
little
of
bit.
your traits.
A little bit.
I'd have to agree with that. I think that's what helps make you successful today, honestly.
It's worked in my favor.
You have a thing for numbers.
I do.
I have known only one other person that almost like a photographic memory for numbers, but you really know dates and years and the law and figures and numbers. What is that about? When did you realize you had a gift with numbers?
So my father would probably beg to differ with you. He is a doctor of math, now retired. So I don't know if I got it from him or just being raised by him, of course with my mother, but getting that input. Mm-hmm. But numbers, I see things in numbers and they just stick. So I will remember someone's phone number, but I might forget their name. It's backwards, but it's just it's how my brain works.
So I guess you remember zip codes, phone numbers.
I'm very good with numbers. It's just the language of my brain works with numbers very well.
That's amazing.
Just weird. It's just how it's wired.
But I think it shows when somebody today talks to you about anything that has to do with real estate. You are on it with numbers and figures and percentages and dollars and how things work in such a way I've never experienced it with another person, let alone
Really?
somebody in real estate. Yeah.
Oh, I'm surprised.
And when you are talking again about anything in real estate, you have a business. It's all business for you. There's no. You are so good, and I'm not just blowing smoke because I hear this repeatedly from people who've worked with you, and I've worked with you. There is a comfort and trust with you that I think is really not common.
Oh, wow. That's nice to hear.
And I was curious if you were aware of that, and if you can point to one or two things that have helped you become that way, and if numbers is one of those things.
So I think numbers are important, and I think for me it's how I like to receive information. Pardon me, is also how I like to give information, right? Mm-hmm. So if someone's explaining something to me in their world, whatever their profession is, as it relates to me, I want to understand the logic behind it, how it got there, where we are, and where is it going. And usually the numbers will tell you that as it relates to whatever that industry is, or statistics, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So I just try to communicate with people how I would want to be communicated with. Mm-hmm. Kind of simple.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So you were this tenacious young lady in the real estate office and fairly new to the real estate world.
Oh, brand new to the real estate world. I remember, I would ask my father, I was so young. I was still living at home. Yeah. I had moved out, and then because I got my real estate license, I asked my parents if I could move back home till I could get steady. And I remember going home and having my dad explain to me what the word equity meant, because I did not understand what it meant.
Gotcha.
So I was greener than green.
Okay. Today, you're one of the top Keller Williams brokers in the nation, in the whole United States. And I've watched you grow in that, to that height over the last 10 plus years. And I want to ask you about leadership. You have a team behind you I call it the Vitacco engine. You call it Team Vitacco. There is an engine in the office in Encino. At what point did you realize that engine was going to be necessary in order to be successful?
So I was probably in the business maybe 3 years, and I was busy. I was very busy, and I would work in the business during the day, and then in the evening I would work on the business. There's so many facets to a transaction, and I was literally in the office till midnight, 1 a.m, back there at 7 a.m, and just because you take on a client, you take on that responsibility, you've got to service it properly. So there was one point where my cubicle, if you will, because they just gave me a small cubicle, I asked for more space. They said, sorry, you're not worthy of more space. I said, okay. So I'm the kind of person, I like to work on the floor a lot. I just like to sit on the floor and spread things out. And this was before computers too. So I would just start sitting on the floor, and then I encroached into the aisle. And then
suddenly the floor of other cubicles were full.
Yeah, absolutely. I just kind of slowly, like the blob, it just kind of moved around. Yes, exactly. And I was sitting on the floor one day, and I had all my files spread out, and a woman who was twice my age came over to me, and I'll never forget, she had her hands on her hips, and she stares down at me, and I look up at her as I'm sprawled out working, and she said, "You need my help." And I said, what do you mean? She said, "Look, I'm going through a divorce. Real estate sales takes a very specific positive energy. And if you're not in a good space, you could be very talented and skilled, but it takes a specific energy." And she said, "Look, I know what I'm doing. I can help you. I need to make money, but I don't want to do real estate sales right now." And I said, "Yeah, I need help, but oh my gosh, I've never had an employee. I'm this new agent. I'm doing business, but I don't know what I'm doing, and how am I going to afford you?" And she said, "Let's just do it for 90 days and see how it goes."
Really?
So she was very smart because she knew much more than
she saw
I
something.
knew. Yes.
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay, fine," because I was terrified to take on an employee. And what if I don't sell a house, right? How am I going to be responsible for this person? And I do have a very extreme level of responsibility.
Yes.
So I said, "Okay, we'll do it for 90 days. I could deal with that. At the end of 90 days, it doesn't work, we're good." Well, of course, she freed me up so much that we had to hire someone else. Wow. And then, so that's how I learned how to grow it because of her. And that was the beginning for me. Wow. And then I realized how to leverage, I don't need to be the one making 17 copies of this for the Department of Real Estate or, doing this part of it, et cetera. So, and then over the years, it's just morphed and grown, and it's a constant work in progress because the market is constantly expanding and contracting.
Sure.
Just as soon as you get it humming in one direction,
right,
it changes.
Well, and look at what we're looking at today, and we're in May of 2021 here.
Insanity.
Have you ever seen it this nuts?
No. When COVID hit last March, when they announced shelter in place, March 19th, it was a Thursday afternoon. I'm sure you remember where you were, who you were talking to. I said to my husband, "Well, I guess it's been a good couple of decades. Who's going to want to buy real estate? Right. Who's going to want anybody in their home?" And the next 14 days, the next 2 weeks after, because there was still tremendous momentum in February going into COVID, going into shelter in place. And although we had heard of this COVID thing, it wasn't here. And we had no idea that we were on the ledge and we were just about to get pushed off.
Right.
So I thought everything was going to be dead. And there was tremendous momentum going in. So the first 2 weeks, I put 10 houses into escrow, of which 6 promptly fell out, of which 4 went back in. The real estate market was as volatile as the stock market was. It was just up and down and all over. Then the next 2 weeks were dead. And I think that was the point where everybody
we talked during that time, and you were like, "It is absolutely dead quiet."
Yeah. Oh, that was also when there was one day I was on Ventura Boulevard, and it was like 3 p.m, and which is usually Ventura Boulevard's bumper to bumper. I was the only car. I thought I was in the Truman Show. It was bizarre.
Something happened and they didn't tell me.
Yes, exactly. I think everybody was we were all so terrified that,
Ventura Freeway the same way.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
It was kind of nice.
Yeah, it's like, woohoo.
If you needed to get anywhere.
It's my road.
But the next 2 weeks were dead.
Yeah.
But then something happened about, maybe it was beginning of May. And that's when a lot of people who had been in some sort of process of going on the market, prepping for it, their house is going to be ready, or the somebody in the family passed away, or the tenant moved out, but now all that got put on ice. But now people were 4 to 6 weeks out, and they're like, we got to do something. We can't just have this house empty and idling. We've got a mortgage to pay. What are we going to do? We need to be in our new place.
Continues, yeah.
Right. So things started to slowly move. So what had happened, though, was the only other time in my career that I saw complete halt of any inventory coming in was the 94 earthquake.
Yes.
Right? But that was the only other time where the production or the incoming inventory just cut off. So here we went into COVID with low inventory, then nobody was listing their homes for that first month.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, when people did start to peek their head out of the hole and say, okay, who's willing to participate? Yes, exactly. Who needs to transact? And it was really the mandatory sellers at that time. It was no discretionary buyers and sellers.
Gotcha.
So inventory went super low. And then coupled with that, they dropped rates to the lowest that they've been in our lifetime.
Yes.
And it was the perfect storm. And it was, it just blew the lid off. None of us could have ever seen it coming. And it was just insanity. I would, and still to this day, it's not uncommon, although it's not, it was where it was scalding. Now it's just hot. But it was where I would list a property, and in 9 days, I would have 110 showings and 38 offers.
Good God.
Yeah.
God.
And I would have that on several properties. It literally got to the point where I created a email response to agents that said, because I was getting literally in like over 1 weekend, I had 150 offers come in on various properties. And so my email response was, thank you so much for your patience during this very unusual and challenging market. Please tell your clients we are working as expeditiously as possible. We'll get back to you as fast as we can. It was like trying to take a drink from a fire hydrant. And that's how it was across the board. It was just blasting. And it's still going. It's
a year later.
Yeah, because interest rates are low. And, well, two things happened, right? And I was actually interviewed by a national newspaper at the end of last year about the COVID effect. And pre-COVID, people were spending 80% of their waking hours outside of their house. And they were spending money on travel and concerts and vacations and dining and shopping and theater. And then all that stopped. So for the people who were still making money, they were now spending 80% of their time in the house, and they were not spending money. One of my clients who actually works at a bank said that for the first time in his career, they saw the bank balance increase, the reserves increase, just because people couldn't spend money. So it was the perfect storm. And it's just, last year was my best year ever. Is that horrible? Like to say that during COVID?
I understand. I understand completely. I feel that when there's so much tragedy and loss, and people's lives are destroyed, families are being destroyed, and to have, there's a guilt at knowing that my business has succeeded.
Right.
I understand that. So my personal thing is to give back to small business, give back in ways that I can.
Absolutely.
With what I have saved and not spent.
That's nice.
How can I put it back into the economy and make sure people have jobs? Or
right. That's awesome.
So I want to switch gears a little bit with you, because another major aspect of you as a human being is your love of animals.
Oh, they're the best.
I thought I had a huge heart. I thought Brian had a huge heart.
You both do.
But you kind of blow us out of the water.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I think you do. How many pets have you rescued from houses that have been abandoned? Back to 2008 when you and I did some business, and there were so many bank-owned homes.
Yeah.
And the stories that you had.
Horrible. horrible
that you
people.
have rescued. Have you ever kept count?
No, I don't count. I just, when they're in need, I find them a home.
And
They find me, though. They do find me.
you are Dr. Doolittle.
Oh, I never thought
Maybe
of
it
it
should
that
be
way.
Dr. Do Much. Dr. Do a lot. You even went to a neighbor's house that you saw a dog
Oh,
that was in the backyard living on concrete, and it broke your heart. This was just a neighbor's dog that you knew wasn't getting the love and attention. And it took you how long until you approached the neighbor and said, I want your dog?
so every Saturday morning, a girlfriend and I do this 5-mile walk. And in the backyard, there's this beautiful dog, and he was on the side yard, and it was dark, and it was dirty, and it was horrible. And he was a husky.
Which you have a fondness for.
I do.
Yeah.
My firstborn was a husky. Mm-hmm. So I told the woman I walk with, I said, we're going to go knock on that door. That dog needs to walk. No one's taking care of him. And she's like, oh, geez, Stephanie, really?
Yeah.
Come on. No. So it's a Saturday morning.
Here
It's
we go.
7:15 in the morning. And she's standing at the curb. She's like, you go for it. And I knock on the door. Nobody comes to the door. I ring the bell. Nobody comes to the door. I knock again. And finally somebody comes to the door blurry-eyed. I must have woke them up. And I say, you probably think I'm crazy, but I see you have a husky. We walk 5 miles. Huskies need to exercise. I'm happy to walk them. They look at me like I'm out of my mind. I said, I'll give you my driver's license. I'm a local real estate agent. I'm not going to do anything stupid. I'm concerned about your dog. Mm-hmm. The guy's like, okay. So he agrees to. And I told him, I said, just give me your number. And what I'll do is on Saturday morning when we walk by, because it was at the start of our walk, I'll text you that I'm going into your yard. Mm-hmm. And then when I return him, I'll text you that I put him back.
The dog is back.
Yeah. So every Saturday morning, and I
rent a dog.
Yeah, I got a leash. But you know what's horrible? The dog was 2 years old. Oh, and when I got him on a leash, it was very clear to me, no one had ever walked that dog. He didn't know how to walk. Like if you ever walk a dog for the first time.
Sure.
I mean, even as a puppy, but this was a 2-year-old dog. Wow. He had never been walked.
Wow.
Disturbing. So, so fond. So I just love that dog. So long story short, walked him for months. And I finally said to him, I sent him a text one morning and I said, my friend would love to have your dog. Now, I didn't want the dog. I just wanted him out of that environment. Yeah. I got 2 dogs, 2 cats, a husband. That's enough. So
enough animals.
My husband keeps telling me, Stephanie, you're not 10 years old. You can't keep bringing them all home.
But I can.
So I can and I will. So I just knew I could find it a good home. So I actually talked to my friend about it and said, listen, if I can yank that dog out of there, will you take him? And she said, yes. I said, okay, fine. Because she said she had wanted a dog. Ended up, and that when I would go see the dog in the morning, the dog would literally, he would see me, he'd hear me at the fence, and he would do circles like this.
So excited.
And he would, and they had totally neglected him. His water dish was full green, or he wouldn't have any water, and it was horrible. So he said, my friend is looking for a dog like this. Can I ask where you got him? Just maybe he would say, here you go.
Your toe into that water.
Exactly. And he's like, oh, my brother bought him on Craigslist or something. I said, okay. And then I just kept hinting. And then I just asked, do you want to sell your, I see that you guys don't take care of you don't have time for the dog. Maybe you want to have a better home. No, my brother loves that dog. Okay.
Right.
And then on the 4th of July, when I texted him and said, would you mind bringing the dog in? Because I know their ears are sensitive. Oh, no, we can't. I said, well, why not? Because we have wood floors and we don't want to ruin our wood floors. Ooh. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, we're going full throttle here. Okay, how much do you want for the dog? Yeah. And my friend wants to buy the dog. It's not for sale. Okay. So I came back and said, my friend will give you...
Here comes the tenacious part, people.
My friend will give you... how much did your brother pay? He paid $500. My friend will give you $500. He doesn't want to sell it. Next weekend, walk the dog. I said, the dog's really sad. He needs lime like the guy. I'm surprised he didn't block me and say, quit coming to my house, right? He did end up blocking me, by the way.
Well,
but I think he changed his number, and I'll tell you in a minute. I'll speed up my story. So after doing this, and I was at $1,000.
Wow.
And he still said no. So then one day I put the dog back in and I left. And the dog, I mean, he could see I was the only 2 hours he had out of a 7-day period that was like out of jail. And have you ever had a text where you send, like you write a text and you're like, should I send that?
Oh God, daily.
Should I send that? And then like, no, I shouldn't send it.
Yeah.
And no, I shouldn't send.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
And I kind of did. And I basically said, your dog is neglected. My friend will pay you $1,000, but it's not fair to your dog. It's really not fair to that animal. And I drove off.
Nice.
And about 15 minutes later, he said, okay, I talked to my brother. Bring cash, but make it fast before he changes his mind. So I go home. I get $1,000 cash. I tell my husband, I'm going to get, my husband knew, and he's just like, Stephanie, no.
Yeah.
Because he knows what's going to happen.
Of course.
So, and I text my friend, you still want the dog? Yes, but she's out of town, so the dog has to stay at my house for the period of time.
Right.
Now, again,
right.
I have 2 cats, 2 dogs. It's a whole deal. I get the $1,000. I go over, I give it to the guy, I get the dog. He gives me, I said, give me whatever information you have. Turns out the dog never had shots. They never had him fixed, nothing.
Oh my God.
Okay. So now I get the dog at my house. I make arrangements to get him to the vet, get him fixed, get him shots, all of that. My girlfriend comes back 5 days later, and I won't even go into the details of that 5 days with this husky in my house with everybody
Untrained,
else. Yes.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was a nightmare. Although I enjoyed him.
Yeah.
Nobody else did. So give him to my girlfriend, and then after 2 weeks, she says, I can't keep the dog. So she gives him back to me. So then,
Excuse me?
Yes, exactly. I'm like, give him back, I'll find a home. So, very long story short, and the dog was traumatized. That's why. And an animal needs time. In fact, you gave me the name of the trainer.
Yes.
So, found another home for it. They said, we'll take him on a trial basis. I said, that's fine. They got the dog. They said, whoa, this dog needs a lot of attention and time. I said, just give it some time. And I paid for a trainer to go to their house and train him. They gave the dog back. Then I found another home. And the woman said, I will take him as long as he gets along with my dog. And we met on the street, and it was fine. And the dogs got along fine. Gave her the dog. And then once the dog was inside, where it's more territorial, no go. I got the dog back.
Holy smokes.
Then I finally found this wonderful woman who took the dog, and her husky had died. I didn't know her. I posted it on Facebook. I was like, all right, I gotta go just out there with this. And she took the dog, and her husky had died, and she almost tried to give him back. And I said, no, just do this. I'll pay for 90 days of training. Just give it 90 days. And that's when I hired the woman you recommended, Jean.
J9's K9s.
Yes, J9's K9.
Canoga Park.
Yep. And I said, just work with him for 90 days. And if at that point it doesn't work, I'll take the dog back. Of course, my husband was like pulling his hair out. No, he's praying that it worked. Yeah. And it worked. Wow. So she still has the dog, and I go to visit it now and then. So that's a long story.
But it's so indicative of who you are as a person and as a professional, as a friend, as a daughter. I have seen you through highs and lows, and I think tenacious, and I will find a way to make this work, come hell or high water. That's you.
Well, I think any animal lover would do the same.
But not just, but also in your business. And you find when something seems so bleak, or that it's going to go south, or something looks like it could be very tragic, you find a way to turn it around, and you find a way to make it better. And I think that speaks volumes to who you are as a person and a human.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And I'm so grateful that you're one of my friends.
Well, likewise.
Thank you, Steph. Thanks for being here.
This was fun.
Take care.
Bye.
Presented by Echelon Business Development. More than just networking. Way more.